because we have an upset borrowing limit of approximately $20 million, that we can, borrow, from, which depending on the amount of funding we get, the Acton Living Center could use a large amount of that. So really impacting, the capital spend going forward. So for this year, our focus was really on a carry forward budget from 2024. We're moving in the right direction, but no major increases or no major cuts, that we planned to date. But we still have work to do. On the operating side, we're still moving forward on, a number of different projects, be it the Active Living Center, the Port Authority. They all take time to put together, right? And this is really going to be a planning year as opposed to an actual capital development year from a budget perspective.
So the budget is $14 million of spending, capital and operating. Most of it will be in operating. The 2 pages I've got right here is how much is going to be funded from the levy. So for example, if we look at the cemetery, it's $9,200. Because it's not fully funded, we have to levy $9,200 on the tax levy. It's the first 2 pages. So again, if you look on the second page, their total operating, it's just under $6 million to fund everything listed above with the tax levy. So 1% cut, or if to achieve a 1% from 8% down to 7%, you have to find $60,000 in either additional revenue or in less spending.
So as you all know, this council's committed to some major milestones, which is one was pouring $2.9 million for the Active Living Center to get us to where we are today to go to tender. That has a carrying cost, as you can see in the budget. That's part of the operating cost. That was huge. Then we also now kick in the carrying cost and also the debt repayment now of the public works garage. That's over and above what we had in the previous year's budgets. So those 2 main things right now are some big impacts in our overall operating budgets.
So is it fair to say if the pool was still operating, we would be in a very scarier situation?
It'd be higher. We'd be a much higher operating cost.
Yeah. And looking at what we'd be doing with the pool then regardless?
But in consideration of those 2 things I just mentioned, those are added costs to the operating budget that weren't there in 2024, 24's budget going into 25. So we look at that, just those 2 carrying costs alone, and the impact of the repayment of the public works garage, which we knew we committed to those builds, and the future build of the ALC, we know we're going to be faced with some dilemmas. So the dilemma is simply this: do we carry an 8% tax increase to the residents, or do we start cutting? And cutting is, if you looked at the budget closely, management has done a very good job. I've looked at it, as you know, I'm a nickel and dime guy. There's not much areas to cut. There's a $5,000 here, $2,000 here that maybe you can identify. But overall, we got to decide what we're going to do is whether or not it's going to be shutting services down.
And this is our first discussion with council, is just to come up with the amount of the levy. We're still waiting on the assessment of our largest tax payer, which is Barracks Williams Operation. So we still don't know how the allocation is between the tax classes. If Barracks assessment goes down, then we'll have to assess more against residential, commercial, and multi-res. If theirs goes up, then they take a higher or.
Yeah, so this is just a discussion. So if you look at some of the things like the DSAP levy went up, the funding went up, so that kind of offsets each other. OpenP, we got the rebate back from the province, so it just leveled it out. So these are basically things we've committed to with those 2 key construction builds that are impacting the budget somewhat. And of course, we have increased staff and operating costs that the game already does with the oil, hydro, and our staff increases annually. Those are impacts in the budget. So look at that. Those are things that we got to consider. Do we want to give the residents 6%? I certainly don't, and that's something we have to discuss through this process today.
So if we start administration, the first page is taxation audit. You'll see that there's numbers on the left-hand side. This is our general ledger account. So we'll refer to it to ensure that everybody's on the same page.
So, how I like to do things, Mr. Verbo, I start from page 1 and go through it, and I ask each and every member of council if they have any questions, concerns, or if there's anything that pops up we can address, and we'll get through it quickly. And there's some things that are just straightforward. All piece of equipment, or just a matter of going through. Okay, they got to have that piece of equipment. You got to change the oil, put new tires on. Those are things we're not going to be discussing. But there's other areas I might pop out of you and say, hey, I want to look at this more closely. Mr. Skorczycki.
Okay, just one other important item for council to note, as per our strategic planning discussion last fall. You won't see any revenues in here that aren't 100% confirmed. So in the past, we've gone on some assumptions, that were risk-based on, selling assets. There certainly is the potential for some of those in 2025 on, some of the business dealings we're working on right now, but they're not included in here. So if it's not a guarantee that we know is bankable, it's not in here.
Right. Whereas in the past, those were identified in the budget, they didn't follow through, and then that's, of course, then it comes into a deficit situation where we budgeted for it and didn't happen. So thank you for doing that as well. Good. Yep. Okay. So as you heard from Mr. Verbo, all the identifiers are in the previous 3 or 4 pages, and we'll get ready to the first page, which is the mayor and council. And you can see that that has gone up a bit, obviously due to travel expenses. I talked to Mr. Verbo about it, and there's not much you can do about it, honestly, just the way things are. There will be an impact if I move on to a different role. There'll be less travel expenses, but that's something that will be reflective at the year end. Won't be reflective now. But I think in general, your budget was 134. You're going to 146, 6,000. There's going to be a slight overrun on the budget issue for travel. So everybody's good with that?
Just to clarify, the budget will be passed the plan is to pass it in April. Okay. So for the next couple of months, we'll ruminate on everything, and if there's changes, then we'll be reflected in the budget.
And I put on here myself personally that there could be potential $5,000 saving there, potentially, because I am with council permission on external boards as well. So that would be the NOMA, the Thunder Bay District Municipal League, AMO, and the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards. Those all have impact on your budget, right, for travel costs. So that's something we may address. Next page is administration's actuals and revenues, and then goes into all the payroll. So this is the second page, administration.
Just certain the department heads will peep in if there's required. So just to let you know, investment income, the 5th line down, yeah. We're factoring that the lower rates, because the Bank Canada has lowered them, and so in 2020 or 2024, we managed to put money aside at 6%. We're not going to get that anymore, so that still has to be reviewed. But the offset is we have to consider once the capital spending on the garage is finalized, we'll have to come to council and convert that from a construction advance to a debenture, and that'll set the terms for the next 25 to 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, everybody got that?
So, labor, there's cost there for a communications manager. On the next
568.
Correct.
So that's somewhere like, okay, so if you're looking at what Mr. Pitches said earlier, that's somewhere you look at with the only way you can cut that 8% is we look at services provided and labor costs. So that's something you can consider as a check mark or not.
And labor is a bit of a misnomer. So you may see so we've added a communications manager. And I have to say we'll make an announcement regarding that this week. But we've also saved in other areas. As an example, where Fire Chief Trash has taken on the bylaw department, you won't see that carrying cost in bylaw and labor. So it really is a net balance labor-wise at the end of the day. We haven't added to complement. To be honest, we've actually reduced it by 1 for this particular budget here.
Great. Okay, next page. I think the top number is 12,210, administration office supplies. Any questions there? I had the one around the watch guard reclass from lease. So it was about a $10,000 difference in the actual.
If you look on the next page, right, where you're seeing lease at 500. Before our telephones used to be leased, and so they were recognized under lease payments. Okay. Now the lease has expired, and so we've moved the lease money from 500 to 414.
Okay, that's just straightforward transit. Okay. Yeah. The next one I had was admin travel. Personally, was looking at that. I'm just looking at traditional spend for the budget and forecast. Then there was about a $13,000 ask, so it's about $5,000 difference. Is there specific items that were popped up there?
So that's one of the items that we'll certainly reduce.
Okay.
And it's a work through as we get to April.
And I'm fine if you need to travel. I put in there, but I looked at the traditional value spent. is around the $9,000 mark, so.
Yeah, so, and just for council's information, so, we'll be meeting Wednesday morning as a senior leadership team to review our discussions of today and make it, and start those budget adjustments.
Okay.
And $4,300 of that is actual training costs, so that can go up to the line above.
Okay. Next page is the employee assistance program, top of the page. So the admin special projects, the conversion from server to cloud is $15,000 budget item.
So right now, we're operating with our server that's, I'm thinking, 7 years old.
We'll get there.
And there is a risk there, but it hasn't been, we're not going to lose anything. But if it goes, then we can't pay anybody, either employees or vendors.
Okay.
So this is to get the work to sunset our server, have everything go in the cloud.
Okay.
Adam, who's our software provider, will charge us $15,000 to do that work for us. And
Then there'll be an ongoing administration cost for the cloud.
that's, if you'll see on the previous page where it's $10,000 more, that's
Yeah.
moving that to
Okay.
the cloud.
But just on that note, important to note that, you know, number one, that's part of, so we have a 5-year IT strategy. This is part of it. So, you know, we'll be moving, you know, there's a cost to do it. But going forward, there won't be a capital cost to replace servers, which is going to run you 50 plus every single time you replace them. So, you know, this becomes an operating cost, no longer any capital cost. Also eliminates the fear of what if you lose the server.
Yeah. Okay. Next up for me was special project website redesign. And we all talk about you have to have a modern, working, functional website. So it just is $15,000.
And also, our current website provider is no longer providing services for their, so we have to transition.
Nothing else jumped out at me on those 2 pages. Anybody else?
Just to let you know, we've gone with a different insurance provider, so
Saving
that number can change.
Yeah. Potentially savings there.
And also debenture interest payments of $545,000. I still have to determine that because we have $11 million to debenture and $2.9 million on the active living center. I haven't really put too much effort yet in determining what will be interest costs for the next 11 months.
Okay, but those numbers could potentially go up or down.
Most likely
Down. Okay, good. That's a good number. So the insurance was reflective of the savings you've already identified from previous years.
No, that was just last year's.
You're budgeting 329.
Yes.
That will likely come down.
Okay.
But we obviously just finalized last
Sure.
week.
There's a potential savings there.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to figure out in my head that, you know, we can get from 8 down to 7, down to 6, down to 5.
Realistically, we're
Yeah.
probably just
Okay.
for a rough number, 10,000
Okay.
savings.
Okay, next page is the administration maintenance accounts. Nothing there. Jumps out anybody? Sound property, 30 Laborandre. Obviously to be sold. That was one we had identified last year, and that was where we get caught up with these sales we don't sell. And so you're not identifying that as a sale this year, but if it's sold, it's a bonus. Okay. Everybody got that?
Is that the one with the foundation?
Yeah. So there's a market for it, but what's the market price is the key, right? Okay, so that could be a potential bonus sale in 2025. That could help us bring that number down. So you'll reflect that as an overall, what you might think it could be, but.
Well, we're actively selling it. We'll actively try and sell it. And if that, you know, if we are able to recognize that number, we'll certainly do so before April.
Okay.
And, you know, so realistically, just, you know, we're not going to, you know, recommend we include it in the budget today, but even if we sold it for, you know, we're going to recognize, you know, the loss in 2024 because we budgeted for it. So 2025 would be a plus, even if it was plus 50, it would be to the good.
Sure, and I think in consideration of the market right now, as it was hot and it cooled off, you know, if there's a guy or gal out there interested in redoing the house themselves, maybe there's an opportunity to get rid of that lower price, but that's something you guys can discuss behind the scenes. Thank you. Okay, so next page is the town property vested. These are the tiny homes cost and stuff associated with the old trailer park. I have a question in regards to the cleanup budgeted for $5,100 roughly. That was the original trailer that was there. So why is that still an actual amount of money put into the budget this year?
No.
No?
So in 2023,
Right.
we cleaned up
Yeah.
Mr. Anyas.
the property.
In 2024, we spent $25,000 in labor to put in the fencing at the mill site.
Okay,
We still envisioning that the mill site will require some work. So this is
Yeah.
all,
I see that, but I just was wondering why the 51 for Anya, clean up Anya's trailer still was there.
Yeah, so the notation is from 2023.
Okay,
see, that's
And,
what
and,
23 actual.
actually, yeah,
so the $5,000 is, so that's wages.
Okay.
So important for council to recognize, wages, we distribute them through the budget,
Yeah.
but you can't cut them because
Nope.
if they're under union contract, they're guaranteed their hours.
Yeah.
So if it's not in this line item, it would be somewhere
sure,
else.
and I appreciate that, I just wanted, it's not nothing to do with the Anya
No,
trailer and
that's
stuff.
it all. No.
Okay, good. Next page, fire department. Revenues, and then go into the actual costs of operations. Anybody have any question on that page?
Just to let you know, on payroll,
Yep.
subdivision, the fire chief has assumed bylaw duty,
Right.
so but they're not allocating wages to bylaw services, so
Okay.
that's why fire spending is higher.
Sure, and as Mr. Spitch identified, that's a combined position now, so thank you for that as well. And any other questions on that page? Next page, photocopier is top of the page. The only thing I had in that page was in regards to the fire hall maintenance services. There was a roof repair leak, new cabling for that, just over 28,000. Identify that.
Absolutely, yeah. So we got some roof leaks in the facility. It's original roof. So we're gonna get a contractor in here to repair the roof.
Okay.
And we've got some cabling that is basically deteriorated. We have to replace that for some repairs.
So is that a pretty well fixed number, or is there some room there you don't?
It's a budget number I'm using per square footage, what I've done in the past and with previous work.
And we still have to come up with a long-term plan for that building.
Right.
Because right now, it is too short for the length of fire vehicles right now. The former OPP station is difficult to repurpose. All you have to do is ask the former fire chief, and his sledgehammer didn't get very far.
Okay, so, okay, good. So the next page is the fire equipment, the communication safety. Again, I look at budgeted amount and forecasting. So there was a budget amount in fire maintenance services equipment. These are just numbers that I throw out there because I'm looking at what you was actually forecast to spend and not. So if there's room to play, the fire chief can work with administration and identify some of those areas. You know, maybe you have to replace something you didn't replace last year, but they're small amounts, but they're 2,000, 3,000, 2,000, 3,000.
Yeah.
The add up is right. Okay, next page, 21 pumpers on top of the page. Again, these are ones where I talked about, there's no need to really go through these. These are things that administration really look closely and look at what the impact is in the budget. These pieces of equipment just need to be maintained properly. The next one is the next page is the 2024, 550 is top of the page, nothing there. Next page is policing. Obviously, policing is a fund that we have no real control over, but we were able to get the government to reduce the impact on our municipality for the wages that OPP were under negotiated contract, which they received. We don't know what that, it's good for 25. We don't know what that's going to look like in 26 and on. So that'll be another little bit of dilemma coming into the fall of this year, going into 26 budgeting process. But for now, we're locked in at that number. Police Services Board. This is something that's kind of been tossed around. We just haven't figured out how to get together and meet. So that's pretty standard for the budget right now, but there will be a spring conference. So that's the only real thing that impacts the budget. There was a Thunder Bay zone meeting I attended, and I don't see that spring conference might be attended by a member or two, but depending on, let's say, but we're sharing this with Manitowoc. There's a combined budget for insurance and a cost for the operating of this board now. So.
And we're still waiting for our second rep. And so that's why our 2024 labor cost is low, because we only had our one person.
Yep. Okay, next page is the bylaw. And as identified, the chief has combined the positions now / chief bylaw officer. So that'll be reduction there. You see that.
And you'll see at the top line, provincial offenses, we haven't had any communication from the city of Thunder Bay on whether we're getting any money for 2024.
Well, we certainly should be, but we don't know what that is. Okay, so that could be a bonus. If you look at traditional amounts, actual 23 was 22. It'll fluctuate, but we should be able to get at least 10 grand out of that.
But that will be for 2024.
Right. but 2025 budgeted amount will be reflected for 25, right?
Yeah, well, what we do.
So it's 1 year
It's
behind.
5 years, it's 5 year rolling average, so.
Okay.
If the number,
Let's just say it's
if the
10
number
grand.
came in at 20 grand, it would be a higher number
Yeah,
for,
sure.
it's a formula.
Yeah.
So.
So we're anticipating
To
a
your
bit of money.
point, there could be another 2 or 3 grand in that budget.
Okay. Just, I know it sounds petty, but it's the little bits that add up. Well, at the end of the day, you go, well, 5, 10, 5 grand here, 3 grand there, and then all of a sudden you got 150 grand. Okay, next page is the dog pound. Any questions on that page? Very straightforward. Next page is chief building official.
We talked with the federal government analyst last week, and we seemed confident, or she seemed confident that the money we've received so far is good, so that'll help 2024 and 2025. But future payments, we're not sure, again, because they were expecting to see 200 building permits.
Right. So we've had the discussion with the MP, and obviously we don't know what's going on with the whole, progression of government right now, but this number was identified in the $1.9 million we received, correct, to offset these costs.
So, yeah, so on this page,
Right.
As an example, when you see consulting tiny homes.
Yeah.
Right, it's really just a match with the revenue, right? It's not an add to the budget. Right? We recognize it as the funding coming in as a revenue, that's being utilized to pay that. Offset the consulting costs, so it's a net zero.
Okay. Next page, Center Bay District Health Unit, that's the manor. Anything jump out there on anybody?
That 2024 stuff, just to let you know, that was the revenue we could have got if we charged the hospital for their building permit of their expense.
Right. And
Somebody donated that.
yeah, these are contributions no different than we did with the 50 unit and the 30 units to make sure that our community is being prepared both for housing and for long-term medical. So these are investments for all residents, right? So these are impacts in our budget, but they are definitely future investments. Anything else on that page? So as you heard, we heard from the library and clinic building, and that building is maintained by the municipality. So one ask for the library was consideration for the increased budget. We'll consider that. Obviously, there is an impact to the library, to the municipal budget already for the building maintenance and cost of heating. And so those are all to be reflected in those asks as well.
Yeah, you'll see the library, so the clinic that refers to.
The health portion of the building.
You'll see that. And we've added some new revenue with the new clinic that's, the RAM clinic that's in the bottom floor, MFMC used to be.
What is the thought on the administration's view of that building sale?
That requires a
A little bit more
closed
detail.
meeting discussion with council.
Okay, sorry.
I have met with both Nosh and the family recently.
No, just because we had talked in the past of what do we do with the municipal properties, right? How do we look at that as a cost of operating? Okay, so health professional recruitment, this is a key aspect to the maintaining, and I think we're going to be seeing more need for this position going forward as our docs have been here for a long time, and I'm sure they're looking at retirement in the near future. I hope it's not soon, but the reality is they've been here for some have been 30 years serving our community, so they're going to look off into the sunset as well sometime soon, I'm sure. Any other questions on that page? Cemetery services, pretty straightforward. Next page is arterial works. Not much here, that's just a straightforward levy.
And our assessment, we haven't got notification officially yet, but it is higher because we've got 2 new apartment buildings, and DSAP allocates it based on assessment. So Marathon's got a higher assessment because of the 2 new apartment buildings, so we have to pay more towards DSAP costs.
Okay, so you reflect that in your budget, or you're just looking at kind of
That's why
wrap
they gave me over the phone, but I haven't seen anything official yet.
Okay, group subsidization is the next page.
So your worship, you should be, so now I would suggest the council, on food bank,
Well, you want to look at each one of these,
I would-
to keep them in or not? Yeah.
that's now the time to do it as we go through, because they'll savings or not, so.
Okay, so as you heard from the administration at the local food bank is looking for a contribution this year again of $15,000. And based on all of the needs within the community and also the needs of this administration to bring our 8% into line, what is the thoughts? So, Councilor Wheeler, start with you.
Well, big thing, food insecurity is a big thing, and more people are using food banks than ever before, so I think we need to keep it at the historical number.
Okay, Councilor Balance?
Yeah, I'm good with 50.
Okay, Councilor Giuliano?
I support that.
Okay, so that one doesn't change. Next up page was group subsidization promotional items, support community groups, plans. These are for the boxes and rod and gun snow kickers at 23. That was funded, so $7,500. Do we want to continue this program?
I would cut a bit of it.
You're looking at what? The recommendations are,
Give them 5,000.
they already get 5,000 for the support.
So we get
sorry.
two different items. So 2,500 is traditionally, so that would be if we bought swag as an example. If we bought, town marathon pens or pins or stuff like that, which we didn't spend the money last year. We just didn't get to it, to be honest. So we can certainly cut that 25 out. Support community groups. These would be the peninsula planters that traditionally our volunteers plant and then we maintain. They're two different items. So if, the $2,500, certainly an item we can cut.
Okay, I'm good with the swag getting taken out for now, and then even the planter boxes is something that you can discuss. I mean, they're done and they're really pretty, but they're an ongoing maintenance issue. That's the key, So the volunteers seem to really go gung ho getting them in, but they don't seem to maintain them down the road, right? And our staff also has been a bit laxy on the water because these are annuals that need watering every day.
Yeah, I will say last year we focused extremely quite a bit of time on the watering.
Yeah.
It was a very demanding task, especially with the new trees we planted. I would say on average when we are doing watering, it's most likely 4 hours every second day of an employee.
Like I still want to have this as part of our beautification, but I mean, maybe we focus on those individuals who are volunteering and look at maybe more perennial, hardier plants. Because annual plants are really pretty, but they take a lot more maintenance. Hardier perennial plants don't need a lot of maintenance. They need watering maybe once a week, if that. But whereas an annual plant needs watering every other day, and if you don't, you just threw $5,000 out the window. So maybe we could look at this as something we continue on, but maybe change their focus on perennials this year rather than annuals.
Sure, I can speak to that. All the volunteers are doing absolutely.
Everybody good with it, because we still have to have our community looking good when
Yeah.
we come into town, right?
Yeah.
The volunteers do spend a lot of time in it.
Oh, yeah, it's
We're
just,
very fortunate we have that.
annuals are really hard to maintain,
Yeah, I will agree.
so. Okay, so that's $2,500 out of there for this way. Economic development, provincial grants, Heritage Fund obviously are good for us, the mat tax and the mat tax revenues is quite substantial now, so that's something we can look at for the other groups that identified some requests for that.
So, administration is not recommending anything for the budget. For this presentation, all we did was took 50%, which is the required amount to be distributed.
Okay.
And just to let you know, total to date for mat tax, we've over contributed $78,000 more than we need to.
Right, under the 50-50 formula.
Correct.
Okay.
Did we look at increasing the max stat?
We are doing that. We'll look at the research. So that's part of our strategic planning. And we're doing
1% increase from 2004 to 2005 would generate $32,000 more income, but half of that would have to be distributed, and we would be the highest in the province. That's
So we definitely want to be a leader in that aspect.
Yeah. We'll bring an official report back to council, but at this time we're not recommending it. You'll see the economic development budget. Obviously, Mr. Allen's assumed those duties.
Yeah.
The only new add that you'll see is we have included $50,000 for the Port Authority. BN, our partner in the port, has also included 50. Those are just some carrying costs we need to move forward with some consulting. We submitted our phase 2 application to FedNor, phase 2 to NOHSC, as well as we've completed our application for NFMC. So we're looking at a combined $5 million startup funding for those. So this is just what the port board agreed to, and then we're carrying that in the budget under economic development.
So in here, good afternoon, Councilor. So in here, do we want to discuss the mat tax recipients, which is the ask in regards to the cross country and snowmobile club? The cross country ski club is asking for additional 15 grand this year, right? 10 grants,
We
sorry.
asked for 10, the group of 7 has asked for 100.
Right,
Council might as well discuss it now, it needs to be discussed. So,
absolutely. So the cross-country ski club has been traditionally 10. They've asked for 10 again this year. Councillor Giuliano.
I support that, and just to remember that they're also looking for some in kind.
Right, and they can have discussion with administration, see what that looks like for time lots and what the assistance maybe would give. Councillor Balance.
I support it from the recreation side, but with it being seasonal and only a bit within the whole year of it, I don't know if I support the full ask, but don't want to really give a number until the other councillors kind of.
Well, I think I'm asking you for 10 or give me a suggestion.
8, like just not the full 10.
Okay.
They're all of them moving forward. I
So
would.
Councillor Giuliano's at 10, Councillor Balance is at 8, Councillor Wheeler.
And I'll just add about the 10 is that we saw the drop as a crappy winter last year. Hopefully, next year we might be able to offer less, but I think they're going to need some extra support this year in particular.
Okay. Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, I support 10, especially with getting the youth program back up and going. I think that's really great for our community.
Okay, Councillor Lake.
I support 10. I remember the curling club and everything else that we don't offer recreation. They're running that for us.
Okay, so we've taken care of them, so they're getting to 10. We had the library group, the group of 7 asked for $100,000. I think last year we gave them $60,000. They did some great work with the Mink Trail, Mink Falls Trail and the staircase. I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to visit it. It is really top class, and now they got their permit to sign that area. That'll be much more identifiable. We heard from the presentation that they're looking at putting the bridge over Sturdy Cove, working with Bitigon and Schnabbe to get permission to cross that bridge over the Sturdy Cove Creek. We've always supported them, and I'm fully supportive of their ventures. And I mean, 100's a lot based on what the restraints we're faced with right now, with the potentially 8% house lake increase based on the numbers that were presented by administration. So in that $100,000 ask is something that, you know, whether or not we can be reflective of the full amount. So I'm going to ask for suggestions. I'm going to start off with Councillor Lake.
Certainly we were 60 last year, and that included a big infrastructure bill. I'm wondering if 50 might be appropriate, 50 or 60. But certainly not the 100. But I think as we look at 8%, we've got to cut lots of places.
Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, I think 100's a bit much. I would be like 60, the same as last year.
Okay. I had a conversation with them, and I think the 100 is really a high end, and they know they can leverage more monies. You know, I wouldn't have a problem, because if they're focusing on a Sturdy Cove bridge and the bridges cost money, I wouldn't have a problem going to 70. I wouldn't go to the 100. I don't know if 60 is going to do it for them because they are leveraging money, so I'd put that out there for 70. But I'll let Councillor Giuliano and Balance tap in. Councillor Giuliano.
That's their total. We're just figuring out what the percentage of the total budget,
right.
and it looks like they're asking about two-thirds from us. Is that, which seems like a big part of the budget to me. I don't have a number in my head, but I'm just trying to compare the percentage that other groups are asking for their budget.
Sure.
You know, is one of the helpful things we can think about, and it looks to me like, you know, they're looking at the town to be the major financer.
Sure, and the fact that the MAT tax was introduced, and this was given us opportunity to take 50% of those dollars and put it back into various groups within our community to make sure those things are happening, which, you know, they are. That's a great tool for us. It's just, you know, we know we can spend up to $200,000 in the MAT tax comfortably, right? 50%, 100,000 of 200,000, but with the potential increase, which we won't get into, that's because that's not, we don't know that number, right? And that looks like, so we got $100,000 there.
And it will take us time to communicate that so that the facilities can start generating that. And another option too, you can break out their grant into 2 different things. You can say, we will give you X amount of dollars right now. You come up with a project similar to the Brink Falls, saying, we'll give you, because it's a physical thing that you can view, we'll contribute an extra amount just for that one project instead of a blanket $100,000 that they're asking.
That's not a bad way of looking at it.
Yeah, and likewise, they said that if they can use what we give to apply for other grants. And I think another option would be if you're applying for another grant, come in and see how much we can match.
Okay. That's not a bad idea that Mr. Verbo just mentioned. It's like if you wanted to stick with the 60 and then if they came back with that specific project for the sturdy cove and if we needed a little bit of nudge there for an additional 5 or 10 or 15 grand, maybe they can reapproach it based on council's administration looking at whether or not there's an increase in the mat tax and not going into 22.
And if administration would be the arbiter of that, if we made that decision?
Well, what I would suggest is for, as Mr. Verbo suggested, it doesn't, the mat tax is fully within council's authority to distribute as they see fit. So we could certainly put, specifications around the contribution and what it's used for. And then we could relook at, we're working towards the April approval of the budget. So, we want to give these groups, some answer now so they can plan operations for 2025 as well. But we can certainly give, if we were to use the number of 60, right, and then say we can relook at it in 3 months, when we have a more final budget picture, that's certainly well within council's purview as well.
Yeah, so with that being said, I'll re-ask the question if we're comfortable with that, because I think they need to get started. They need to identify, they can apply for Fed North Heritage Fund as well. And so if we give them a number and then they can come back and re-ask for that additional funding based on a project specific ask, then we can revisit that. So I'll start with Councilor Giuliano. 60 is your number, Councilor Balance?
60.
It's like an auction. I love it. I'll go 60.
Okay.
60.
So 60 with the condition that the group of 7 can come back and ask for specific project funding within the mat tax allocation in the spring of this year. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that identified those two, and that was it. That was all those two groups are in that group. The special projects other than was the Port Authority that was identified there, as Mr. Scripchensky said. We're applying for Heritage and FedNor funding for those projects, and potentially, that could be a very expensive project going forward for dredging all. So we need to have those consulting fees set up so we can get to the next level of funding. Lots going on the waterfront. Hopefully everybody comes together and it works out good for all of us with the LC and the port. Okay, works and operations. So out of the group, we got the group of 7 identified. We got the cross country club and the food bank identified. So we got the library and the historical site. Okay, next is works and operations. Or do you want to identify the historical site now? Get them out of the way. Works and operations. That page I have only identified chairs and desk and kitchen appliance TVs for the works garage, office equipment, another 19 grand this year. Was not all that purchased. And I know there was 24 budget forecast, 17 to be spent, 19 more to be spent. Is that something that's still ongoing?
That's correct, yeah. And a lot of that, desks and I'd say the main staff area was looked after, but we have other office spaces that we haven't furnished yet. We're also looking at some shelving units for some of the storage areas.
Okay. Wheel balancer, same thing.
The wheel balancer that was purchased in 24.
24, okay.
But when we did the public works building, we wanted to go into the fab shop. There was actually no welding extraction. It was done on purpose that way because we actually weld inside the shop. And so we want to install a portable unit that can be used in the fab shop and can be used in the shop. As per Ministry of Labor, you have to remove the emissions at the source, so you can't weld anymore with a big overhead anymore.
Okay. Next page, works subscriptions memorandum. That's a memo on number the next page. 131, 412. Any questions there? Garage, basically straightforward, moving into new building. So the wages are all identified within the overall big picture of the wages, but overhead and all those other things that added on is all part of the move. The move is done pretty well though, no?
We still have some landscaping work to do this summer and relocation of one of the fuel tanks if it gets approved in the budget here.
How are the employees liking the new space?
They're really enjoying it actually. Yeah. It has been a lot more functional, even for lining up our crews every day. Absolutely.
So just to let you know, for Gas and diesel, propane and electricity, the assumption is a zero increase. We haven't factored in any change in the carbon tax that's coming in April 1st, but hopefully the new contract that was signed in September 2024 will be recognized in lower propane costs.
Okay. Yeah, because they have been reflective of lowering their costs.
But again, we do base energy costs on what we've been spending so far, and with the new garage, we don't really have a handle over how much it will cost for the year. So it's been higher because we've moved into the late fall, early winter type of thing. So
Right, they're open lots.
Yeah.
Okay. Carpenter shop. Straightforward, not much going on there. Next page is steamer. Again, these are all pieces of equipment, nothing identifying jumping out there. Compressor, next page, 23 International Truck, same thing, all maintenance and ongoing repairs. Next page, dump truck, same thing, just the regular maintenance, permitting, licensing. Roller packer, next page, top of the page, same thing, all identified through maintenance or ongoing repairs. 216 track list, next page. Same thing, I'll identify anybody anything jumps out at anybody, let me know.
Just wondering, like,
Sure.
which one of these are, like, some of the dates are getting pretty long in the tooth on some of them. What's the next thing to get?
No, we're managing and, yeah,
Okay,
we're,
nothing this year or next year, you don't think?
no, we're looking, you'll see there's a used vehicle we're looking at here, but, nothing we're looking at.
Last year, we revealed one of the track lists too, right? To bring
Yeah,
it.
2010 was rebuilt.
Yeah. So it's a new one.
We'll probably have to do the 2016 in
Yeah.
2 years from
Yeah.
now. So we're good.
So 2011 Dodge, next page, same thing, ongoing, just maintenance and repairs. Next page is a 219 Chevy. Top of page, same thing, ongoing maintenance and repairs. These are, just for the public's knowledge, as we do every year, these are all just our piece of equipment, identified what they need for maintenance and fuel costs for operating each year. Next page is this 215 Chevy truck. Same thing. Again, if anything jumps out, anybody please speak up. Next page is miscellaneous, number 99, miscellaneous equipment. And the only thing I had there, miscellaneous supplies, we're converting our old garbage truck into a tanker truck. We're not selling.
We actually have advertised it on government deals, and we've actually had no offers on it.
Right.
We've reduced the price, still no offers. I did receive, well, I shouldn't say I received one call. I said I'd never sell it for that. We'll keep it and we'll repurchase it. So we're looking at, looking at a piece of equipment we can buy, refit it, and it'll actually help with operations that we're not, unloading a tank, putting it on the back of, our dump truck and unloading it. So it'll actually speed up process. And especially if we're doing the back lanes, it'll be set up. So if we want to go water back lanes, that piece of equipment's ready to go.
So it's more for, it could be only used for water, it could be not be used for calcium or whatever, or whatever you can put in.
Now, once we apply the calcium, then we'll apply the.
Oh, I see, you could put dry calcium water on top. Okay. Okay, so that's conversion, as everybody see, the old 1995 garbage truck.
Yeah, the packer is finished, so this will at least allow us to repurpose the truck of some sort.
Yeah, the truck was not bad, it's just everything
Yeah,
else
for
was
the
wrong.
use that we're gonna require, it'll work out really good.
Okay, next one is roads. These are straightforward, these are our back lanes and traffic control signs, lines. As you can see, the painting of miscellaneous lines with the municipalities about 28 grand. Sure about that paint a long time ago, Mr. Councilor Lake. Our young councilors weren't here at that time.
But it is a good thing, right? If you can buy something and do it yourself, it'll ultimately save you money then.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe just explain a little bit on the traffic control and painting. You'll notice on the budget line 200, because we've reduced that from 2024. Used to be 8,500, now down to 4. You'll see an increase in the painting from 13,700. What happened was the contractor, we had locked in with a price, reneged on the contract. So we basically had to get someone local, which was great. We got a local contractor who's given us pricing who can do it. So the 28,000 now, 500 includes the paint to do all roadways, parking lots, so airport, supportive living or the manor. Every parking lot we have in town, all our roadways, just the mains, we're not doing all the side crescents. So that's where that 28,000 comes in, but you'll see it offset a little bit by the 4,500 above. And that's the reason why we're trying to refocus the painting, and I would say labor. So now we're not gonna be assigning staff to do blocks or anything like that. As we are falling behind on looking after our sanitary, and our water areas. So you look at our hydrants, we've painted them for 4 years. Those areas we want to focus on our utilities, that we want to ensure we extend the life of those.
Okay. Next page, ditches, culverts, and shoulders.
Just my lecture on asset management planning. Again, asset management plan takes risks, like the risk of Peninsula having major issue is a lot higher than worrying about equipment work. Times that by probability, and that was what we had all our roads surveyed, and so the properties that had the worst conditions were Howe, Stevens, Shano, Chisholm Trail, the end of Hemlo from Laverandre Tunnel south, Penn Lake Road, Ontario Street, and Lloyd Irwin. So the only one that we're addressing in 2025, because it was brought council passed last year, was Howe. Mm-hmm. So we're not dealing with any of those other roads in 2025.
Right, and I think we'll get into the discussion around some roadway maintenance and further in the budget too, so. Okay, ditches, culverts, and shoulders is the page we're on. Anything jump on anybody there? So when we look at the patch contractor, this is Mr. Paris and I had a conversation. So this is every bit to see it's in a bay. They have a wider patching system, where we fill the cracks in our community. So it's similar to that, it's a little bit wider, the material is a little bit more durable. So that you see the $95,000 there. That's.
Didn't we have our folks?
Yeah, we do, but that's
So
a skinny.
it's a bit different. I can explain your worship if you like. So we consulted with several municipalities, City of Thunder Bay, Dryden, Kenora, and Hearst. Okay, and we're looking at going with a contractor in order to extend the life of our asphalt. We don't have the money, we don't have the budget to be just paving. And the old concept, you wait till your road's 20 years old and you repave it. Well, there's no money for that. We want to extend the life of our asphalt. We want to go in with a mastic program, so more of a rubberized type of material. So what we're going to do, when you have a crack down the asphalt and we seal the crack, you still get that bump every time you drive across it. We're going to run a 3-year program. So you're going to see this cost for the next 3 years as we look at our main fairways this year, our side streets as we continue. You're going to see patches that are going to extend to 2 to 3 to 4 feet. So those transitions when we're going across are smoother. When our heavy equipment, such as a grader, is coming down on it, it'll actually pull and not catch other asphalt and peel other asphalt. You've seen our roadways, you've seen over the years where we put a pothole patch in and it's popped up, we fix it 10 times. Through the 3 discussions I had with Thunder Bay, Hearst, Dryden, and Fort Francis, they have all said 100% they've increased their budget after they've used this company. Dryden's been using them for 9 years, Thunder Bay's a couple of years now. They just keep adding double and double every year to increase their life. So increasing our life expectancy of the asphalt, improving our roadways, the amount of time that we look at investing, if we want to buy a piece of equipment and do it right, because we do not do the operations properly with the equipment we have. We price out the equipment and through our procurement with Canoe, we would be looking at investing $280,000 in equipment. Now we've got to manage it, we've got to service it. Something goes wrong, you got to get a technical guy in from Toronto. All these things come into play. And here we take it, we give them the order. We met with the contractor we want to go with. We are the furthest that he will take on the east. He will not take any more customers. He focuses on smaller communities. So he'll go to Dryden, Hearst, and us. He moves his team around with weather. So if it's pouring rain here, they're gone to Hearst, or they're gone to Thunder Bay, and then they'll come back. So we recommend going with this mastic program and sealing. It's going to take us 3 years to get where we want. And then we can start extending the life of our asphalt.
Absolutely.
So again, same question, that's the line painter, which is, and I think you sort of answered it, but you feel like it's a better value to contract out every year than purchase the equipment, train staff, maintain the equipment, and
Not just me, and that's true. When we look at staffing, for example, summer, we want our staff to take our summer, especially in the public works, but even more in the winter time. So staff go off. Now you're down to a crew. You need a crew of 4 or 5 when you're doing asphalt work to do it properly. We don't have the staffing to do it. And focus our staffing efforts on other areas, so such as doing the fence mill property, those type of things that we can add inside. But we'll still be in some sealant and some little repairs. We're gonna be focusing these guys on our main asphalt, repurposing program to extend the life for asphalt.
Okay, so with that being said, my only concern is obviously, as you identified, 3 years to get to where we need to be. It'd be interesting to see what 1 year gets us. And is there ability to reduce that in half to get it to come still, or is that the number he's
We
coming?
went through, we've looked at our asphalt through Google. They've actually announced it, done an analysis of it. And once the summer comes, we'll review it all again.
Sure.
But we're looking at a 3-year term with them. So 95 every year for 3 years and go from there.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, Mark, is can this number be lowered to 50,000 for 3 or 4 years?
On the package that we looked at right now, we're looking at 95 for 3-year term in order to hit all our roadways.
Is that we'll do the same patch as 3 years, or
No.
a 3-year cycle to get all?
It will extend. We may do a patch this big this year, and then next year we'll float it a bit longer. So depending on the traverse cracks we have, what's happening. So those roadways, for example, you're going up the Penn Lake, you see the shoulder start to come across. We're gonna hit that. We want to salvage that. We don't want to lose that shoulder. Right? Because when we lose that, then we're going to continue to use more asphalt. I will say though, I do need a decision on this. I got an email from him this morning that he's hanging on to us. We say no, we won't get him. I will tell you that right now. And he is the expert in the field. Toronto wants him, everyone wants him.
Well, listen,
It's incredible what he
it's
does.
a no-brainer. We're wasting our own time on trying
So as
to.
long as I get some approval on that, so we can move
I'm
ahead.
just wondering if it could be brought in at a 4 or 5 year plan at a lower amount, so you're budgeting over 4 or 5 years rather than a 3-year 95. We're looking at an 8% increase. So if I can bring $45,000 off that number this year, that's almost close to 1% reduction right there. But I extend that package for 4 years instead.
Yeah, if council wants us to reduce, down say to 75,
Will he do that?
we can have that
Okay.
discussion with him.
So I'm
It will
asking-
just take us a 4-year term
Right.
instead.
So I'm asking administration to go back and look at that, maybe knock 20 grand off to 95 this year and do 4 years.
Same
3
work
years.
over 4 years instead of 3.
Is that fair? So we're gonna give you permission to go ahead and do the 95, but if you can come back and save 20 off that, and make it a 4-year plan, then you're doing a good job.
Yeah, we will have that discussion. I'm sure we can make that work.
Good, thank you. Potentially 20 grand off, potentially. But
Unless
just-
you're paying the mobilization fee or whatever, and
Well,
it doesn't make
that's the big
sense,
thing
right?
that gets into.
of course.
So that's what we have that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I leave that to the expert.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, who's tracking that money, that amount? I put 20
I
grand.
got.
Okay, good. Just so at the end of the day, we look at where we could save a little bit extra. Okay, next page is the lanes summer.
Asset management lecture again.
Yes, sir.
Just to let you know that, the sidewalks right now, they're not pretty on some of them that want to be addressed, but the tripping hazard is not imminent.
Okay.
Again, from me being a walker in cities or whatever, we can get away with it. In 2024, the walk that was actually done, it's $1,000 a section.
Sure. So I, as you can see in my little booklet, I've identified that. Very nice, yes, very much so. So is there an opportunity to just shade rather than replace?
They're not shapeable.
No, these ones aren't shapeable.
Okay, these are that
cracked.
much or cracked that bad. But again, is it a hazard that's gonna cause an injury or negligence on our behalf?
If we don't fix them, they're
Okay.
negligent.
Then that's fine.
That's the answer.
We do
Okay.
annual
So-
reports, so.
So if you can go back and save a couple grand, great. If you can't, do it, because you're right. I look at that and I go, geez, that wasn't that bad visually, I see, but if it becomes a hazard for insurance, yeah, for sure. Parking lot, summer, next page. Pretty straightforward there. Anybody have any concerns? Next one is the airport. Airport fuel sales, revenues. Down actually from the actual on 23, but that's okay, crazy. All different movement of traffic, mostly,
Wait, can we go back to the rail crossing?
absolutely.
So is it now 570 is the whistle fee? Is that the whistle? Is that what that is? The extortion fee? Is that what we're paying?
It's actually our share of the insurance premium.
For
CP and
the
us
whistle
pay
blow.
for not having the whistle blow.
Okay, so that one drives me bonkers. I know it's only $570, but they have to blow their whistle because it's safe. If you don't want us to blow the whistle, you have to pay this fee, which sounds like extortion.
Just pay more insurance.
Just the
Yeah,
18,
but I appreciate the explanation. It's because we're covering some insurance.
sure.
No, CP is charging us for the insurance that they have to get because they're not in.
Yeah,
That piece makes some sense, about why we pay that. That actually makes me feel a bit better. Not much.
And again, we pushed back through NOMA for the revisiting of the per tonnage rather than per kilometer. And there's been no movement on that. And basically government just said today, just, it's not gonna happen. Because there's the people mover in Toronto and there's the freight mover in the north. And it's not something that's on the table. We pursued it again, but we did go up after we pursued it for a couple of years. We got an increase to what, 37, 40 grand, so we get for our track movement, but we do pay back 20 grand. So we're really only ahead by 17 grand. All good. Airport. Anything there jumps on anybody? Okay. Next page is the creative systems page. Nothing there. Anybody jumps out there and anything? No. Okay. Runway grounds. Next page. Paint and sealing of this is pretty straightforward.
Will we use the same contractor out there?
Yeah, in discussion for we're not doing much at the airport as per direction from council, but there are two large trappers, cracks we are gonna have them do at the same time.
Right.
That's what we have here. Yeah, there's just two real bad ones. So.
Yep. Next page is 98 plow and sander system. No questions there, just pretty well straightforward maintenance. Garbage truck, or garbage, sorry. Next page. That now we're full swing of 25 in the recycling program, and we had half year last year. We're changed up, so this year is the full year. We're not paying outrageous recycling fees, but we're receiving some monies back.
But just, sorry, it's cut off at the very bottom there under producer pays.
Yeah.
That's of July 1st.
Yeah.
In 2025, the industrial and commercial sector is not covered by producer pay. So that's where the $65,000 is coming from.
So we're subsidizing that pickup. By choice, though.
Yeah.
We always did.
No,
Historically, we always have. There's no legal requirement
No.
to, that's right.
Right.
But the producer doesn't have to cover that.
Or sorry, the producer company, which is Circular Ontario.
Yes.
They only do the residential.
So why don't we have our businesses drop their stuff at a residence?
Well, it doesn't matter, so I'll come back to the actual recycling people.
No, if it goes to the residents, then it's covered by.
Oh, yeah, if she picks up at the residence. Right.
GFL picks up, right? So GFL does basically curbside.
We're in the business of recycling, guys, just remember that. So either we stop the business of recycling or we don't confuse the residents.
It's a substantial savings.
We were saving a lot over 2024, 23 class. So any other questions on that?
Again, just to let, if a business or if council agrees to up tax rates by 8%, commercial, because they are higher tax rates, could come to you and you can have something in your back pocket saying, well, we're covering your recycling.
I'd love to have a back pocket booklet, but I think we just got to figure this number again a little lower than 8%.
And people won't go.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else on that page with the garbage truck, garbage collection? Garbage is expensive. As we all know, we're not even covering off half the garbage costs with bag tags. And even though our bag tags are $2.25 and our tonnage fee has gone up, it still doesn't cover off waste diversion and waste removal and waste transportation. And, you know, people get frustrated at us, but we're only the guys and gals that make things happen behind the scenes. The reality is the garbage is being distributed and produced by the consumer, which is the homeowner. So we try to do the best we can. And as a municipality under 5,000, we never were mandated to recycle. We've been recycling since 1997, so that's part of our good stewardship to the land. And this is what it is. Pay the piper in a gentle way. Next page, waste management. Tipping fees. These are all the revenues.
In 2024, or in the past 3 years, we've really benefited from construction, the two apartment construction,
yep,
and the hospital, and BN dealing with their stuff at the school, for example. So 2025, we don't have any project going forward. So again, this is just a formula we use is we just take the 2-year average, and we've added 3.5% because council agreed to that increased tipping fees for 2025.
Okay, I had a couple. One, we had some issues around some of the vendors were selling the bag tags for them. There's no profit in it for them, but they were putting on a fee. Has that been rectified?
Not yet, but it is on our.
It has to be rectified because the consumer should not be paying more than $2.25 a bag tag. If the vendor doesn't want to sell them, then they stop selling them, right? Because it's confusing. If homeowners are literally going to vendors and they're paying $2.25 plus a 3% commission fee, because no blame, most people are using debit or credit cards, so there is a fee that's attached to that business owner. So we either stop selling them at that business, or we come up with a formula where the business owner has a 3% reduction when he comes to the town and picks up the bag tags. That's administration to work out, but it was concerned that.
We have stuff.
Thank you. I was concerned by the residents, and I don't want anybody to be out of pocket for doing a service for the municipality, but they shouldn't also be charging a homeowner over and above $2.25 for a bag tag.
Agreed.
Okay, the only other thing I had on there was the waste transportation monitoring, the monitoring consulting fees was roughly forecast at 66, but it's an annual report, 11 grand. So do we see it being 11 grand? It's only 5 grand difference, but do you see it being 11 grand?
Yeah, we just received pricing on.
Okay, 11 grand.
We're reporting every single year by the government. Everywhere.
Okay, next page, hazardous waste and recycling depot. Straightforward, just operating costs. Next page, landfill site.
One thing on hazardous waste,
Yep.
we were discussing, do we maintain full service during the summer?
Well, that's a one person basically looking after that counter, right? Throughout the whole operation of the waste transfer station. So, if you don't, you just have to do it a Saturday or something, maybe. That's something you can look at.
Yeah, we're looking at what we can do internally on there. We may be looking at a spring and fall only, like a lot of municipalities do. So we'd open up for 2 weeks in the spring, 2 weeks in the fall, bring your stuff in, and that's it.
And just store it between those days.
That's
That's what we used to do.
Okay, that would definitely save one person sitting there 3 days a week.
And it's also beneficial as an operation in whole.
Right.
Because when staff are off on vacation, we gotta fill that position in, we struggle.
Okay, good idea.
So
That's
council's good with that, we like.
guys, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think about that.
It doesn't affect the budget.
No, but it's gonna affect us. So is everybody okay with that change? Because it'll be a
Just like
spring
make sure
fall.
give good notice.
We will, we'll advertise for it.
So all good with that?
Yeah, and we can say this is what it used to be like as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
That was, used to be 1 day a year.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna change that
So you guys are good with 2 weeks and 2?
to the beginning to
It is a big change, and then we can scale down to 1 and 1.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, landfill site wages, these are ongoing, obviously, costs and challenges within this facility,
You'll see I put a note there under landfill monitoring.
right?
We're still not sure on whether, probably won't have to spend it in 2025, but the province is pushing us to put more monitoring wells for the landfill site.
More recording.
Yeah, but again, that's, we have to push back on that because.
No, we are pushing back.
There's enough
If they-
monitoring wells.
If they issue an order, we can't push back.
No, but we'll have to push back somehow because there's more monitoring wells that are already needed. We know where the leaching's going and the leaching doesn't get to the big lake and the monitoring wells identify all that. So Mother Nature's cleaning it out before it gets to the big lake, and our well 2 is safe. We've never had any.
This is the Camp 19 landfill.
Oh, the one out there, okay.
So we are pushing, we have pushed back. But we just wanted to flag it because we're
Okay.
probably looking at north of 200,000.
Okay.
Again, we spent a lot of money trying to deal with those wells, but again, dealing in cobble, our contractor just gave up their hands after spending $50,000 on getting nowhere.
Okay.
To control the wells. So it won't be added to this year's budget, but we just wanted to flag it that it's an item we need to deal with.
Our MPP can fight for us.
Certainly, if they can. And 624 loader. 624 loaders, next page, 214. Any other questions there? Straightforward maintenance, operating of those pieces of equipment. Next page, if we want to have a quick break, or you want to keep going? Keep going? Okay.
So my asset management discussion on sewer and water.
Sure, yeah.
It's subterranean, it's difficult to get a condition assessment, and so we typically said everything is running well if we don't investigate it too further. Buildings, there's no danger, but everything is getting older. But as the treasurer, I wanted council to challenge us on water and sewer spending, because right now it's all funded by the reserve that we've been building from having surpluses in that place. But it's not, and we don't have to depend on the tax levy. future infrastructure needs could be wiped out by just one project. Again, we have a sewage treatment plan that's over 40 years old, and $5 million that's been in reserve, that's been building up for the last 15 years, will just be gone with that one project.
But certainly, we've maintained the sewage treatment plant for the last 40 years as well. We've invested substantial amounts of money in that facility, and we continue to do that. So I appreciate that comment, but the reality is our system was built in 1985 to accommodate 10,000 residents. So we've never been operating at probably more than 25% capacity. So we were good, I hear you. But the more concern for us is to worry about the plumbing under the ground. And that, if we ever come in that problem, well, we know what's going to happen. We're going to spend money that we don't have, even in the reserves. Yeah. Because if you change some plumbing and pipes, you got to change the sidewalks, street lights, and everything else comes with it. So you're going to be some major, but I think we're doing a good job of maintaining the water, the sewage treatment plant and our water systems. It's just what's under the ground. We just don't want to touch right now until it breaks. And if it breaks, well, we got a plan, the asset management plan to replace it, but would you say 80 million? And then Mr. Coach just 80 million earlier, so that's our deficit.
Are we still using cameras to?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're doing, it's not like we're doing nothing, we're doing maintenance.
So for example, we're looking at the Howe Street rehab work,
Yep.
okay? So when we're doing that work, we go in with the cameras, we get Cameron commit, we review. We know Cameron came in, we've got a couple of cracks, we're gonna change that pipe.
Yep.
If Cameron would have came back and said, your pipe is good, you know, you've got another 25 years,
Yep.
we're gonna change it up, because 25 years, we're replacing asphalt again.
Exactly.
We will be replacing valves. That's the biggest thing that gives us issues. So if you look at the Howe Street intersection, we have 3 valves there.
Yeah.
We're gonna actually change those valves. We'll, you know, extend the curtain of the asphalt on both intersections, clean that up, change the one pipe and go from there. It's, you know, every time you go change, you need to make any change, you gotta get it on our approvals from the ministry. You gotta do full analysis, basically. So on sanitary, you gotta take the whole flows again. So if you take 2 pipes, you change it to 1. There's a ton of calculations and work that we have to ahead of time and get approvals on. But we do. I do want to say, I do believe, and I do respect the treasurer and his values on how much money we do have, and those are expensive fixes. There are, grants that are coming out. There was a couple that were just announced. We will be applying. We always do. As we look at lift stations and other things like that.
So some are grants, some are long-term loans. So you have to consider both, right? And whether or not you're successful in those grants, like everything's oversubscribed. Okay? So thanks for that recommendation and comment. But we are keeping track of our systems, and our systems are actually in good shape. I think from the years of investments that we put into them. Lift stations evergreen. No questions there. Next one is sewer treatment plant maintenance.
Here's some big bucks.
Yes. Well, again, we just talked about that. So I identified that as well. So the clarifiers and the dewatering system of $647,000 in electrical relocations. This is really a lot of money.
So I gotta explain a little bit here.
So, and just before we explain, just so council knows, by reducing these numbers, it doesn't reduce the levy amount.
No.
Because these are budgeted for coming out of reserves.
Right. These are water reserve accounts, so there's not going to reflect that 8%.
Right.
But I'm just wondering why the numbers are so big for
So we're gonna go through things that we brought the council several times to bring the contact enclosure to get put in over. One of the issues we've had is in 2021, council and Public Works have purchased effluent samplers. We've got 2 samplers sitting there that are valued at about $60,000. We need to get those put in so we can make sure that we're testing the effluent going into Lake Superior to verify that we're doing it on a consistent basis with machine and equipment. So by then, now we want to put an enclosure over this. We did some homework. The numbers came in at 400 and something thousand, which is ridiculous. We've got it shaved down now. We're going to do some of the work in-house. We'll contract out the concrete work, and then we will buy the steel structure ourselves. We'll manage the project ourselves, so we're not giving Northern Waterworks a 9% increase. And then we'll have our trades put up the enclosure, which is just going to be a steel structure. So prefab, we'll buy it from Rocket right out of Canada. We'll be supporting Canadian and have it shipped up here. That's one of the big
things. Just for council's familiar, this is the contact chambers that is covered with wood right now. Today has been there for 40 years.
It's never been covered.
So we want to put a building on top of that. That was too high when we looked at it before. Now you're saying it's going to be better because we can reduce that cost.
That's right. So we're going to reduce that cost, and we put those numbers in here. Also, when we look at these fees in here is the Electrical Safety Authority did an audit on our facilities. And I brought them in, and bid of risk 2 years ago. We brought ESA in last year. As all our other facilities have electrical safety inspections done, our water and sewer division were not getting them done. I was a bit concerned and spoke with senior management and to look at getting ESA in here to verify the equipment in here, especially because of the conditions that it's in. You know, we got a lot of rust in here. We've got, is it explosive? Where are we sitting at? Well, we don't meet the regulations in these facilities and some of them. So what we're going to do here right now is we're going to upgrade some of the electrical services. And some of the areas, and I believe Councillor Wheeler will return, where you went in some of the facilities there. We need to bring more air exchange into these areas, and because of flammability and combustion, what type of process is taking place in specific areas. So this is one thing I strongly recommend council approves, that we move ahead with this and be compliant for the safety of the workers that work there, and to ensure that we can do testing and our effluent. We have equipment sitting here not even installed yet.
So no, I fully support that. I just want to make sure that we're spending the right amount of money. That the contact chamber system has always been just covered with wood. We had lift, so that to me it worked well.
Yeah.
What I felt like was the cost was outrageous when you brought it to us in the past, but also what was the benefit for the employees to go into a building that was secured and covered and heated. Right?
So it wasn't heated.
No, but the heat from the chamber.
It's still going to be a building that is going to go over it. Because if you look at the annual reports that I brought forward from Northern Waterworks, it does classify in there as a health and safety issue with all the the rotten wood and all these items where people are walking over. We'll have catwalks now put in with this, and then like I said, now we can set up the effluent equipment because we can't install this equipment outside. It's got to be protected from the elements. So now we'll be able to use that equipment that's sitting there since 2021, put it into the structure. And like I said, we're doing work ourselves. We're buying the product ourselves. So we're saving 20, 25 points on a general. We become the general in this project and manage it that way. So we have from 400-something thousand. I think the number's 2 something right now.
But this
is capital.
This right now is talking about the 2 clarifiers and the dewatering building.
That's correct. So you're talking ESA work from TBT.
Yeah.
It's a combination of both. It's the story.
Right. The one page is the identifier for the new contact chamber equipment, right?
So you're going to see this year, we're going to do the design work this year, but the total cost will come in at $35. We need a year of designing work for ventilation, electrical upgrades.
So this is the building over where all the bugs are.
No, those 2 domes are the clarifiers.
Those are the clarifiers.
The chamber that's discharging out into the big lake is one with the wood covering on it.
That's a contact chamber.
Contact chambers. We walked it, we looked at it, and it's got rotten wood. It's treated wood that's been there for 40 years.
But these expensive here, your worship, is the clarifiers.
Right.
Okay, so when you go inside a clarifier right now, like we have electrical lights, we have pumps in there, controls, that stuff has to be removed. And we also have the area where we take, the solids come in, we actually pack our solids, they go into the trailer. And we have a conveyor belt in there, and you guys always see the trailer going up to the highway. That encompasses putting ventilation system and upgrading the electricals to be compliant for exposure.
And just to clarify though, maybe it's duplication. Contact chamber enclosure and the digester covers are in capital.
That's correct. Sorry, John. Yeah.
The clarifier and the dewatering is different.
Yeah.
So all of them, we're spending about $2 million over the next 2 years, based on your preliminary. Well,
647.
Yeah.
For the clarifiers.
Yeah.
And $340.
$1 million.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So
This is,
I misread that.
but it's all.
No, I sort of jumped into capital first, so my apologies on that.
No, I got you.
Coming out of water reserves.
So the blue page is just the clarifier electrical work, basically.
Yeah.
And ventilation.
So this is
So when they put those clarifiers in, those aluminum panels, I can't remember the year they put them in. So all they had is one small little square ventilation system there. And the regulations have changed. So we're going to appeal.
But understanding that when they were installed, which is really baffling because we're not engineers and experts, but they were installed about that day's standard. Why do we have to bring them up to new standards?
Because ESA done an audit,
We have to.
and now we have. So I'll show you.
Okay, so we got no choice.
But,
So the secret is don't invite anybody to do an inspection. Is that
No problem.
so so really there's 2 options, right? We have to do the work. It's a question of, does council want to do the design work and all of the work this year, or just the design work and then the work next year. But regardless, it's coming out of reserves. It needs to be done. It's an order.
Yeah.
What do I have?
So I'm recommending do all the work.
Yeah.
It's a water reserve
Coming out of
fund.
reserves?
That water reserve fund was built up, as our treasurer says, for repairs and water and sewer. It's an added on to your bill for these very things that pop up, and then here we are.
That's correct. So we do have approval from Ontario Hydro, from the SA Electrical Safety Committee to do design. They understand it takes time to do design work. Some of the air handlers in here may be an 18 or 24-week delivery.
Okay.
So by the time we do design work, yeah, it may carry into the following.
Okay, so we're approving this out of reserves.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
out of reserves.
Next page, after the blue page is water. Water residential revenues, obviously is set there, and there's a bit of that put into reserves for our future needs. Any other questions there? No, I had to highlight training expenses, so we actually only spent the forecast about 5, then about 10.
Yeah, we are losing a senior operator, so we'll be doing some training.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just so council's aware, part of the challenge for us with water is we do have a very efficient system.
Yep.
So we actually don't have a lot of water works we do.
Right.
So they can't get the hours that they need on the training side of things. So
Yeah.
as much as we try to get them the hours, we just don't. So it's a bit of a curse.
Yeah. Okay.
And are the extra water initiatives that are listed on that budget, are those all orders as well, or are those?
No, these are just normal capital work we want to do. So well number 2, you'll notice it was through the budget in the last 2 years.
Yep.
We actually have to reconfigure some of the electrical. The wires, actually, the overhead wires go above well 2. So our contractor will not go in there with the overhead to take the well out because of electrical safety concerns. So we're actually going to relocate the electric main service coming in. So in the future, when we actually have to pull the well as per legislative requirements, we're not getting into that. So
So for council information, well 2 is behind the old TD Bank down by the rec center.
Yeah.
And it doesn't draw a lot of water. We can actually eliminate well 2 if we needed to within our systems.
Yeah.
So it's consideration for future needs, right? We have enough capacity in other parts of our wells to provide the supply as water's needs. And that's part of the monitoring system from the existing landfill site to make sure the leaching is not going into our water system. And I'm sorry when I talked about the landfill site monitoring, but that was the other one out of the M19 road. There's more wells needed there. Okay. All right, water mains. Next page.
Just going off of what Mr. Paris said, the electrical upgrade, it's $25,000. I've divided it into the 5 wells, so that's located in each of those other wells. It's a $5,000 for the electrical upgrade.
Okay, next page at top of pump post number 4, Barrett Field. All same thing. These are all, as Mr. Weber just identified, some of the electricity costs and operations and aspects. Electrical ECAs. No questions? Next one is booster station Pen Lake. Install new EF pump. There's minimal cost there. Electricities, operating costs. And then we go into the next section, which is recreation.
sorry, Mayor, if you do notice, one thing I'd like to point out to council, if you look at as we're upgrading our motors and our pumps to VFD, you'll notice a substantial saving that you're seeing in the electrical cost.
Oh, yeah.
As we continue to move forward, VFDs we're going to keep pushing forward, keep reducing that cost.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So we have recreation administration up next. So this is where we get into the increased funding. We talked about the van loan, the interest costs, and those funds going forward that we approved as a council. Those are impacting us obviously in 2025.
If you go way down,
Way down.
down to 7,141 fundraising for ALC,
Right.
we're still working on developing the amount that's going to be needed for.
Right. And I think we discussed that with administration. What does it look like for fundraising aspects? So hopefully.
And this is not covered by the demand loan because the banks want
Specific.
stuff that will go into capital. So they'll have no problem paying the $2.9 million for construction documents.
Okay. Any other questions on that page? Okay.
So that's a risk to the levy.
Well, it could be an increase actually, but we'll have to get there when we come back from administration, gives an overview of what we've saved today, what potential other movements can be made, and whether or not councils are, comfortable with a 3 to 8% increase. See, I went really low, below 5. That's probably unrealistic.
I think that's pretty unrealistic. That's okay. I appreciate you throwing that out to the universe.
Okay, thank you. Total expenditure page, top of the page, 7150, the 260 pickup truck. Again, these are just operating vehicles within recreation.
I just wondered again, asking if admin has looked at, we had a conversation last year about at some point maybe going to an electric or a hybrid, something that's going to show some leadership on the environmental front. I don't know if it seems if the vehicles are getting any better or that feels any more feasible or.
Yeah, for what we're looking for now, we're looking just for a used pickup truck, but no, we're not, maybe the next vehicle for specifically for bylaw or for a chief building official, maybe we look at something.
Yeah. Next new vehicle would be, and then, with the hybrid plug-in too, I think they're all coming down at a reasonably priced. And as we move forward with the technology, batteries and plug-in hybrids are coming down. I think all governments have removed the subsidies now, so it's up to the manufacturers to bring in less profit in that regard. Canada Day, next page. Obviously, just straightforward.
There's a line item for bouncy castles.
Yeah, it's in there.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
Hockey school revenue and all this stuff that's gone on at the arena over the years, no different. I see we had one of the hockey coaches back in minor hockey. Minor hockey did. That's great because there's a lot of leadership in the minor hockey program to get those coaches up and trained in specifics. So that's good.
That's actually been a nice relationship.
Okay, arenas next page. And we all know where we're at. That's why we put the $2.9 million for the LC. These things are just running ahead with hopefully nothing major happening. So these are not anything in here identified for any major catastrophe.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, as we look forward, like best case scenario, question I get lots is, what day could a new ALC be open? And do we feel like the arena can make it to that date? Are we still pretty confident in terms of?
Yeah, well, we're going to obviously, report back to council, hopefully within, the next few months on the status of our funding applications. One of the exercises, we're going to start internally is looking at different borrowing scenarios. It really isn't, as we discussed down at Roma, it's, the question isn't, do we need to replace the building, right? That's an absolute yes, right? It's just, how do we finance the new building, right? So, I would say, are we confident in the timelines? Yes. Right? Are there going to be challenges with, the funding? I think there are going to be. It's just, how do we meet those? So, council remembers back to last fall, one of my presentations was, we're going to go through scenario A, B, C, right? So, that's what we're going to go through over the next 3 months. Realistically, we wouldn't recommend we take anything out of the current design, right? Because we're not, the building, is designed, for the public's information, the pool is heated by the arena, right? Like the building design that we've created is, second to none from an engineering perspective. And it's not going to cost us more to build, right? It's going to come in around $600 a square foot, which is the best you're going to do in Northern Ontario, right? It's just a matter of how do we finance it, so it's affordable.
And we're comfortable that we're doing what we need to do to make sure that the current arena is going to last.
We get Simcoe in, we fix it when we need to, we service it when we need to, and if it breaks, we call Simcoe and get them to come in and fix it. That's really where we're at. So just for council's information, it's not public yet, and I won't release any of the names. But our pre-qualification team met last week. We've pre-qualified our general contractors and our electrical and mechanical contractors. They will issue the tender within the next 3 weeks. So we're right on schedule to be coming to council, likely end of April, early May, with a recommendation for contract awards.
And just for the public clarification, that is all based on funding.
Yeah.
Well, that was my question. Are we looking at bringing in someone to do the actual fundraising?
Yes.
Okay.
The external fundraising, yes.
Yeah, but we're not going to have our staff.
No.
So Mr. Verbo said that's not part of the budget right now, but there could be potential.
We've identified a firm that specializes in recreation funding, so, yes.
Not you. Your counselor, you gotta raise it to $60 million.
Realistically, you know, if we're successful with one of our funding applications for site servicing, we're gonna recommend we go forward with that, irregardless if we have the money for the building. Because we still, you know, it's still a good investment in cleaning up the site, right? Because we need to preload it anyway. So, you know, we realistically do that work. It won't be out of our pocket, it'll be funded 100%. And we do that work in 2025, right? To, you know, be sure that we're ready. You know,
Keeps our timeline.
correct. Yeah. So lots of moving parts, but realistically, you know, we're hopeful to have a fulsome report to council probably early April.
Good. So next up is pool maintenance, pool building, straightforward, just very much minimal amount cost there. Theater, again, just the ongoing operating and revenues coming in for the operation of theater and costs going out. Any questions there? Bowling alley, straightforward revenue, and then of course expenses. The expenses are built into the total building for the Lakeview. And there's some maintenance costs in the bowling alley minimum, but the overall building itself, heating and lighting and maintenance of that building.
So just to let you know, on boat launch.
Right. We lowered the fees last year.
Okay, yes. But also,
I remember that.
administration identified significant repairs are needed
Right.
to the cleats on the dock that's on the left-hand side where larger boats were tying up.
Right.
We've taken that out of the budget, so the vision right now is just to have the dock that's along the ramp.
The main dock.
Yes.
Correct.
Not
The two main docks.
Yeah.
Two main docks are gonna
Not
be,
the
there'll be no slips put in
There's
there.
no slips. So the cleats on them slips is what you're concerned
You're
about.
looking, it's about 25,000.
Oh, holy.
We're keeping those.
So let's
The slips we'll keep.
let's repeat that number, just so the people in the boating community understand how expensive things become really quickly. So the cleats on the slip parts of the main second dock, not the ramp dock that you launch your boat with, is not going in because they're 25 grand this year.
So our cost for our estimate coming in, just for the parts that we know right now that need to be replaced, it's approximately 14,000
Okay.
plus labor.
Yeah.
That's what we know.
Okay.
So by eliminating the slips that don't get used too often,
Right.
we'll keep the two main runways in, two main
Right.
docks.
Yep.
So people can still come from the top and go down, and that'll
Sure.
be it.
And somebody can still tie up to that main secondary dock over here.
Absolutely, we just still tie
Come in and get
there.
groceries,
And
whatever.
this was caused by Lake Superior wind damage.
Sure.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. No. Because we don't have a break wall.
Until we have a break wall, we're gonna continue on with those expenses.
So I guess that was my question. One is, we're looking at break walls, obviously, and if anything ever came up, if it's a floating dock or whatever. But two, we'll store the slips so if at some future point we can put it in.
Absolutely.
So they'll be stored down by the lake or?
We'll probably store them up actually at the landfill area.
Okay.
Yeah. They're down there right now, but we'll be.
But again, you know, there was a lot of criticism about money spent on that facility and was it necessary to increase fees or whatever. No, the reality is there's still a huge subsidy by the ratepayers of the community for the boat launch and boat launch area, period. Okay. Bowling alley, we already discussed. Everybody's good with that. The boat launch fees, we're not adjusting. We've already been adjusted. We've talked to the ratepayers. Everybody's good. Well, they weren't really good, but they were satisfied that we looked at it, reduced it.
Well, but that's, you know, you pointed it out, right? You said, look at the wages alone, $18,000. You know, our revenues for boat launch fees don't even cover the wages to put the docks in.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, so next page is the green spaces, including Pebble Beach and Carden Cove. These are just things that our staff go around yearly and maintain.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, that's right.
And I don't know if they make such a product, but I see some of those poor kids with their stickers like for long stretches. Is there not an attachment to any vehicle?
We have that, but
Okay.
on
Yeah,
our
no,
sidewalk.
we're actually looking at, we're gonna purchase two, push buying ones, just like, look actually like a lawnmower.
That's way.
They're more commercial, especially on those long stretches.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna work good in the ditches,
Okay.
but there's a lot of other areas that we're going, so we're actually purchasing two of those, which is part of our internal budget here for operating.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
It looks like it looked like a fun time for some of those young guys.
I do too, Councilor.
Oh, yeah, you've been
It's
on
the
it.
good learning tool.
I was one of those guys.
They learned it.
They're learning about hard work.
We can help them a little bit.
We do not try to look up the staff, so it's not.
Just change them on these sides so they can switch their arm power, right? Okay, so next up, the skate park, outdoor tennis courts, maintenance. Nothing jump on anybody there. Next page is Penlake Park.
Just to go back to miscellaneous equipment.
Yep.
$6,500 is to buy a used plow truck to do some quick snow removal. So like at the arena, instead of waiting for
Order. So it's 75, 49, 200.
Yep.
You'll see 25 used plow truck, $6,500.
out of the 9,000.
We're talking about a plow truck or a plow for a truck.
No, so we've got a secured, well, we're waiting for approval, but, we've got a pickup truck, 2011 with a Boss plow truck, plow Boss.
Oh, that's
Sorry, a Boss plow on it.
on it.
And then we're gonna use that for Lakeview Community Center, so on the weekends, you know, if the operators are busy with the highway, they can go down there, do a quick plow, and around the arena, when we have tournaments in the morning, get it cleared out. And we may look at other areas, in next year's budget.
Okay. Penlake Park. Pretty straightforward. Park does well.
Yeah, it does do well. Just a question around thinking about places where we do make money. Are we at the point of Penn Lake where we might consider making additional sites, or is that just not feasible?
We have spoke internally, just because like, I mentioned earlier, we're holding back this year on that, but we do have preliminary designs, and we do have some surveying cost in already, what it costs to survey to expand that park.
Because certainly everybody who I hear feedback from is that's part of the area.
So personally, I would have rather seen a 10 or 12 sites put at Pebbles, and those individuals could go dump their sewage and that, and just have electric at Pebbles. I'd rather see that than expansion of Penlake.
And there were the old campsites down along the road.
Yeah.
Towards the,
On the long-term planning, this is the senior leadership team, have everything laid out for all our parks. Once funding starts coming out, we'll apply and go from there.
Good.
So that's talking Pebble Beach, Penn Lake, and future waterfront development.
It could be good for you guys to manage a few more projects.
So,
Golf course. Anything jump out there for anybody? No savings, okay, good. I identified, I'm a business guy, restaurateur, like there's always so many points on liquor, and liquor does well, but food is a really tricky one. Identified trying to buy more bulk purchases. I know our staff do the best they can, but it's time they're running back towards the grocery store for little things. That's where it gets costly. So if you add up into the actual big picture operations, it knocks down your 35, 40 points down to 10, 15 points, right? Doesn't sound like much, but over a season, it could be, 10 grand.
we are also having problems, you're there with, firms such as Pepsi, wanting to deliver once a month now. And also in bulk items, so sometimes it's a bit challenging, so we do have to support locally. It is a bit challenging.
Okay.
Your worship?
Yep.
I know in the past there's conversations around revenue generation through facility rentals. Is that something that we're going to be looking at in the next couple of months or whatnot? Is opening that to the public for rental opportunities, or?
It's really, a bit of, a relationship with staff you attract, right? If you have good staff, right, and you put out a good product, right, it makes sense.
Yep.
If we don't find good staff, then it doesn't make any sense because, you're not generating enough on the revenue side to cover the cost on the operating side. So realistically, it makes a lot of sense, if we make the assumption we're successful in funding for the active living center, right, that has a much larger food services component, right?
Right.
And that in concert with the golf course, now we're looking at a different type of operation. So, it's a possibility. I would say right now it's not a reality because they'll probably lose money at the end of the day.
And then actually there were some events last year run by off-site operators with our liquor license. So we worked well with the municipality. We got liquor sales. The individual made some money through their business aspect. So it's a good relationship that way too. So, and it was good food provided then, right?
At the golf course?
Yeah.
It was at the golf course.
Yeah.
So, a lot of it is, to finalize the question, it's an excellent question. The active living center is really not just going to fundamentally change, our capital infrastructure for recreation. It's going to change the way we operate recreation in Marathon, right? Closing facilities, right? Centralizing facilities, looking at a new business model is really what we're going to need to do. So, a lot of that is contingent on that one project.
And again, we struggled last year to find staff at the golf course, period. Just staff. So looking at that, you look at, that looks like, what does that look like, you know, on a bigger picture, right? Each and every year you're struggling to find staff, you know, and yet people are critical of people coming from other parts of the world to come into our communities and our country to work, and yet they're still looking for people from all aspects of entry-level service sector jobs. Like, it's crazy, Councilor Lake.
I'm just wondering if so we've done it both ways at the golf course, where we've had it contracted out to a different provider, and we've done it in-house. Is your feeling like
In-house, if you can?
Yeah.
No question.
and it just makes it easier to run the,
You don't deal, you know, you know, a good, you know, I've been around 20 plus years now where we've done it both ways. So, you know, when you have a good contractor relationship, it works well. When you have a poor one, it works very poorly because equipment gets broken, and who broke it? Well, I didn't break it. Right? And then we paid for it. So again, it goes back to control, right? When we run it, we control it.
Yeah, I've been around for a long time too. We've had some really ugly operators there, let me tell you. So, hey, okay, clubhouse maintenance. Pretty straightforward. Clubhouse maintenance, service, septic tank, and perfect 5 repair. Those things are outrageously expensive.
No, that was actually done the year prior, so in 2024, we did the perfect fire repair.
Okay,
For 25,
Just
we
the
actually
controller
had to
surge
replace the
protection.
HVAC controller and
Okay.
some surge protection in it.
So 15,000.
okay. So, you know, we've had discussions offline, but I think it's a little bit of investment to consider is about the camera systems and the beep when you go into T block number 1, like a monitoring system. So our staff, no matter where they are in the building, they can tell when somebody's arriving on T1 to notify them with the microphone and say, excuse me, come in and sign in. That's an administrative thing we can talk more, but we lose money, believe it or not. And I think anybody who's a golfer knows that people just come out and just go golfing.
Yeah, that's on our radar.
Perfect, because it's such a simple system we can put in place to make sure that people are not coming out and just golfing for free. And that generates revenue in the long term, which then offsets our operating costs and our budgetary demands, right? Okay, irrigation systems maintenance. These are pretty well straightforward. Any questions there? Next page, these are all pieces of equipment, obviously, for the operation of the golf course, maintenance and an operational aspect.
we just bought a new mower, right?
So let's look at
Yeah,
that.
well, we've got approved for it, we're trying to find one now.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
The next page is the Kubota tractor, LH 4400, same thing, just maintenance and operating. Next page is the Ryan Fairway aerator, same thing. Then we get to the public library. Okay, so the budget is 170 grand. We heard from the library through their presentation this afternoon. We're looking at increasing that by $44,000. That's a big ask. And I said earlier on in the actual presentation that there's a cost associated with the library that's not reflective in their ask, is the operation of that building. We pay the utilities heat, and there's no revenue coming from the library in that regard. We're just
They pay for both tenants pay for the utility.
the utility, like the heat and the lights.
Propane and electricity.
Okay, but there's no rent.
Maintenance of the older
The
building.
building, there's no rent and no maintenance
And no water.
and no water.
Or snow removal.
I'm trying to get just what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to say that they're not only getting 170, they're getting 170 plus,
Correct.
which is costing the municipality in a budget form. That's where you have to talk apples and apples, right? We've talked about that in the past. So that number is reflective of probably 50 grand.
Oh, no, way higher than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So including the rent, the snow removal, and the
Probably 200
insurance, yeah, 200. So that's a number you have to consider when you're looking at sharing those dollars over and above those operating costs. But we've had that conversation with the library and the library board in the past about those extra costs that's not reflected in the straight dollar amount. So here's the ask. 170 is the budget. We know where we are in our 8% potential increase. We have to try to reduce those numbers. So here we are. Do we reflect $44,000 increase, or do we go with 170 or less? And I'm going to start off with Councillor Juliana.
I need to think about it some more. There's some more information that would be helpful to me, like cost per number of people who access it. Those kind of numbers would help me make a good decision.
I think today we have to get just administration with what our comfort level is, whether or not it's going to be 170 or less, or 170 or more.
Okay, I think it's going to be 170 or more. For me.
Okay, Councillor Balance?
170.
That's why you get paid the big bucks. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 170.
You're comfortable with that number, Councillor Lake?
Yeah, it makes up 3/4 of their budget, which is, again, it's difficult because when you look at the other sources of funding, they're so minimal. Provincial only being 10%, revenue only being 3%. So I'm comfortable at the 170 and hoping that we could work with them to see if there's other places that they could find that money. But at 8%, I don't see budgets going out.
Well, and to my question with the group, when we look at, and I didn't want to get into the nitty gritty of the business 9-to-5 operations and stuff like that, but is there maybe, when you look at the hard copy books versus the e-readers, is there opportunity maybe for more revenue generation if there was less hard copy books and more space in the library to do something that would generate more revenue? But again, did not want to get into the day-to-day operations of how they run their organization. So, but the white and black of it is every ask today essentially, and everyone is working with constraints within their budgets across every industry, right? So I think that's what everyone needs to be cognizant of is, like I said, especially how we're used to it in rural Northern Ontario, we do more with less. So it's one of those things that kind of seems like we constantly are forced to keep doing more with less as we progress through these budget years. So that's where I come from.
Okay, so I got 170, Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, with speaking to some people on the library board, I know their budget's tight, but looking at an 8% increase, I don't think we can do to their ask. So I think we keep it at 170.
You know, and I think they brought a great presentation. I just pulled up the page that they identified from 1995 at $154,000 budget from the municipality to 2024 170, which is only increased by 15 grand. But the reality is, we know that our increases have been dramatic over those same years. If we look at our 1995 budget compared to 2025 budget, it will be dramatic. But the reality is, we have a lot of service we have to provide, and the only way we can reduce costs in any aspect is to cut services. So I'm reminding the library the same thing. I know that they'd like to have more money. I'm fully supportive of the 170. I know it's a hard blow when they look at the inflationary values in their operation as well. But the reality is they have to make some hard choices now, as well as us being the funder and considering the additional costs that we are in our own budget right now. So we were to take all those costs, let's say the library, we need to get rent and snow removal and those other costs back to the municipality, then they would be probably shutting the doors. In reality,
That's zero.
right?
Yeah.
They would have to shut the doors. So we're still contributing to the point where they keep the doors open with the added cost of those additional in-kind services on top of the $170,000. So we're going to have to make tough decisions, which I think you've all identified at 170, and we have to get that 8% down to a reasonable amount for the ratepayers for our municipality. So I'm good with 170, and I know they're not going to be happy with that, but I think we have to be reflective of what our needs are as a municipality.
More information that would be helpful is comparator libraries. Like, I'd like to know what other municipalities similar size to ours are providing the libraries. Like, are we at the top end? Are we at the bottom end? Where do we fit into that? Again, also including the additional costs and so they are paying hydro and propane, but not plowing and water
And
rent. Yeah, well, like whatever the comparator is, it just feels, I know we're making a decision based on what our budget is, but it's a bit different than the other people who've come forward and that we're required, the province to fund at some level the library. We're not the other ones. So those are things that I just think, I don't know what may lead to offering less. I just feel like I don't have the information that I need to make a conscious decision. So if that kind of thing can be found, that would be really helpful.
And that should be we should direct the library to give us that information, just because they've got the contacts.
Right. So we've been down this road, Councilor Giuliano, many times. Library, we disbanded the library board, we reinstated the library board, we put municipal governance model.
I know I was on the library.
On the library board. And you know, it just, we want to remove ourselves completely and let them run their organization. They've been doing an awesome job. Let me tell you, they have been. But in times of restraints, which we're faced with now with 8%, and it's not going away. These numbers have been they're always in the 4, 5, 6% now, annually going forward. Everybody has to pull up their socks. And I look at some of the other organizations that we give money to, and they're still maintaining their $15,000 or $10,000 ask. They don't want more money. And you've been a big part of those organizations as well as in the past. So does that mean they shut the library down 1 or 2 days a week? They change their hours of operation? I don't know. That's their gig, not ours.
Absolutely.
And so
I
that's,
just want a comparison
sure.
of what is provided, because we may be saying, you know, this is a place we can, you know, hold the line and find out, well, actually, we could be doing 150. Or we might find out, really, like, we're only given half of what the other communities the same size for us are. You know, like, I feel like we're snatching numbers out of the air, and I'd like to have some more information as we do that. And if it's a library that provides it, great.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing from council members, Councilor, you got something else?
Yeah, and I would just say, like, I'm interested maybe as a comparator, but it wouldn't drive my decision. I think whatever number we come up with has to make sense for our community. I would appreciate the shame I might feel if it was half of what Dryden was giving, but Dryden's reality might be different than ours. I think like at the budget level, them providing that information would actually be super useful. But ultimately, I think the number we choose has to make sense for our budget. I do think the one thing we do have as a council is we have some pretty experienced folks with good connections. How can we support, like when I look at the budget number, 75% of their whole budget is municipal. What pressures could we put on as politicians? You know, people who know other folks, letters we can bring to NOMA to increase the other funding streams. If we're not going to provide that money, and we all value the library, how can we leverage the things we are good at to see if there's other sources of money that maybe the library board doesn't have the political contacts or the political will to do. So that's the one thing I would probably say.
Well, that's probably why I asked about the schools that have shut their library and not using the municipal.
Right.
You know, but
Like, is there a funding source there?
they must have saved some money.
Oh, for sure. And we were down that road probably 2 decades ago where we asked the schools to either incorporate the town library in the school systems, and that didn't work out very well.
They did not want to.
And then we also said maybe at the time, I think there was 5 libraries in the municipality, or maybe you shut down 1 or 2 of those libraries and operate through the public library and have some of those fundings come back to us. None of that worked out, Councilor Giuliano, but it was discussion, so it was great opportunity to discuss. But so I'm hearing from councils 170. We would definitely reach out through administration, ask the library board to provide those veritables within the Northwest, and they can then hopefully over the
Yeah,
next.
and it doesn't sound like that's going to make a big difference to anybody. So,
But it might in next year's budget.
Well, it would be, it's information that maybe it is helpful for decision making for either up or down. And then beyond the library to provide the information, not from our staff.
yeah,
It would be library to reach out and get other libraries' budgets.
but I caution you though, it'll be hard to compare municipality to municipality because everybody has their own special circumstance.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
everybody is in the bottom of a clinic building, right?
Right.
Or they're not, Mary lies in Thunder Bay and that's a hub versus having 3 different other regional libraries.
Sure. I think we leave it to them to bring some information back, and then we can be the judge of that information gathering. But it's not going to be a tool that's going to determine today. Today is 1/7.
We need to know about, you know, let's count like as you know, treasurer said, it's your budget.
Yep.
Right, but like, you know, my notes tell me we haven't even made up $50,000 today.
Well, I got, yeah.
Right, that we can definitively say that we've made it up.
No, I got it. Without the house on Laverandra, I got about, $3,800. That's $38,000.
So we need to know the numbers we're working with because, you know, we got a lot of work to do administratively over the next, you know, couple of months.
Okay, so we're good with the library at 170?
Yep.
Okay. The museum. Same thing. I think I have no problem with sharing 15 of the mat tax for the museum. So we're at 15 and 15 and 10.
They don't get mat tax.
That doesn't fall into the mat tax?
That's the levy.
That's the levy. Okay.
Historically, they've been having this 15,000 or 10,000 before.
Listen, they do a great job, and you know, they go after the grants for the summer students and all that, so they're doing a great job for 15 grand with us to operate the museum. And again, it's our building. We maintain the building, do the maintenance, so It's an added cost, but it's a reasonable added cost, I guess. Everybody give us 15 for that museum?
Yep.
Okay. So at the end of the day, without getting into capital, we save 22, 32, 36, $37,300 without the house. I put the house only as a bonus. You guys will deal with that down there. If we sell the house, whatever that number is, that's a bonus.
It's not a huge compared.
We're about 7.5% right now. Capital. We don't got nothing to cut there.
What about Special Olympics?
That was $2,500 or asked for, right? We never funded them in the past unless it was a specific, unless it was a specific thing.
Yeah.
So I know that the Tim's is getting, so either they're getting revitalized here, is it, the group is really getting back organized? Because it seems to be really nothing, no demand for years and years. We've
never had, in my time as CEO, we've never had.
No, there was in the past because it was an organized group, like with bowling and traveling.
The pool was big.
Yeah.
The pool was a big component.
Yeah. So why don't we see where we're at? Not make a decision on that. Maybe you can bring it back. It's only 2,500, but let's see where we land on this.
And their request was, if it was, the best case scenario was 2,500, right? Of course, they'd be happy with any donation for the municipality. So I think that's a fair question that we just, we kind of earmarked that one and let us do a little bit of work over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, even when I talked about the council budget, depending what comes out at the end of the month, what happens for travel and all, it could be 10 grand savings there.
And we're no different, we're going to dig into our travel and training more to it and find savings in there.
So let's keep that on the agenda, but not say no to it. Thanks for that, Councilor. Capital, very minimal. Nothing here really to talk about other than if anybody has any questions on it, because it's minimal. It's the lowest I've ever seen in our history, which is good. Thank you very much, but
well, it didn't start that way, but we just took everything out.
we have to. We want to go forward with the LC. That's our goal for this year in 25 with that $2.9 million expenditure and demand loan. We're gonna have to figure out what, hopefully the next couple months we're on top of things and it's a positive.
So maybe one question. I'm looking at the capital.
Yep.
So Gulf irrigation pump house. That's.
So we provided in 2022. Yeah. We put in a proposal with Burnside to the federal government to look at stormwater and pump house replacement. It's been 2025. We still haven't received anything. We're now at a point now where we actually have to upgrade the pumps and the pump house with the filtration system, which will help with the irrigation heads for being plugged every second day. I would say every day.
Yeah, I can speak on that. It's a definite
Yeah.
need, I guess, a requirement for.
If you go further down, there's a page with the number 3 circled at the top. And it's a listing of 5 projects strictly for irrigation of the golf course. So this would just tackle the new pump station building.
55,000.
Yeah, so it's a part of the work we'd already started and, okay. That's okay.
I'd like to just comment on the golf course bridge, in case anyone wants to know. We're just revisiting that, as the Cross Country Ski Club had looked at maybe some assistance for bridges. Just putting a bridge over a waterwork isn't as easy as people think it is, as requirements now. The original cost of this bridge was coming in at about $200,000. We're looking at putting in a culvert instead and getting approval from the ministry's office to put a culvert in. So there'll be a bit of engineering costs and submission costs. So that's why that's there. So we're looking at changing that to a culvert design on Hole 4 instead of a bridge.
Hole 4, so that's the old number 9.
Yes.
Okay, so
That's pending approval from DFO and that.
So with access going over the hole, you need the bridge.
Yes. How else are you gonna get around there?
Through the road system.
No.
On number 4. Number 3 or number 4?
Number 4, which was the old number 9. You come down the hill.
Yeah,
You get the creek that goes across. We go across the bridge this way, right?
we take the road.
That's right, but that's a bridge there.
That's a 3 culvert, there's a 3 culvert bridge, yeah, well, it's 3 culverts.
Sorry, 3, Hole 3.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So we're talking on Hole 3 for the bridge.
Yeah.
Yes, we're talking on that blue trail.
Yeah. Hole 3,
So
Hole 3.
that's right. So we looked at, we've already got approval to change the culverts on Hole 4. Okay, But we're sort of waiting to do all the work together.
Yeah.
When the bridge came in at, that number, we said, well, okay, we'll put the brakes on this.
Okay.
And then we revisited what our options are gonna be.
Put a culvert on 3 or eliminate the bridge.
Right.
Yeah, that eliminates that bridge requirement going
Right.
forward. So it's a one-time fix, which is not easy because it's a fish bearing creek.
Yeah.
That's working through the process.
So just to get, for example, for the cross country ski club, just for them to do the analysis, basically for the environmental study and the topo levels, they're gonna be like 15,000 stuff. But,
Yeah,
well, we can work with them and try to coordinate the trip together, but, yeah. I just wanted to brief you on why you've been seeing that there, and we'll have some answers hopefully.
Why don't we just do like the old days, just put a little bridge over the thing and be done with it?
Now, we have a ruler that goes over it, so now we gotta classify.
That's the way it was done in the old
Yes,
days.
yeah, oh, I agree, I'm not gonna disagree.
And how many trucks to the compound?
Yeah,
with the guys from the mill. Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Anybody have any questions on the capital? I mean, it's all spelled out. There's $880,000 in roughly grants and about $160,000 in the actual operating for levy. So there's not much room you can cut out of there.
Well, the only
Like
thing you've
almost
got
zero.
is that contact, we've had wood over the contact, chamber forever.
But that's water reserves, right?
It's not coming
Yeah, that won't help,
levy,
right?
right? The levy is still, at the end of the day, we're still probably looking at 80%.
So that, looks like without the wholesale, let's say the wholesale comes in at 100 grand, we can bring it down to 6.5, maybe, best case scenario, based on what we removed today. That's what the wholesale comes in at 100 grand, but that's not earmarked in the budget, okay? As administration said, we're not putting it in the budget share, because if we sell it, that's a bonus, we can take it in and consider it an overall reduction, so we're 6.5. So we would task the administration to go back and,
It's gonna be impossible.
look one more time in wherever little areas you can save 1,000 or 2. I know you've already done great
No,
work.
and we'll do that. And part of the reason, some of our past budgets, I said, not recent past, right? We've been pretty confident that this is the budget, right?
Right.
Because, we do have some potential revenue opportunities. They're not in the
Right.
budget, right? If they come through before April, it makes life a little easier
Right.
for us, no question. So we need more time. We'll find another 50,000 in the budget, but there's not 650,000 in there, right? Unless we're looking at facilities, services, and programs, right? And then what comes along with that, right, is of course staffing, right? And then you generate real savings, right? Because you're eliminating dollars from the budget. So we're not there yet, but realistically, it's a challenge.
For sure, absolutely.
Well, I remember when the mill shut down, and we talked about that sort of, what's the scenario for, and this is thinking you don't want to have to do, but if we're going to eliminate services or buildings, what's the order that we roll up the sidewalks?
That's what I was trying to ask.
And I think we need to do some real thinking around, like, we can't keep throwing 10% on ratepayers. It's not tenable. People have to eat, and feed's more expensive than air is. So if we come to it, I just think we need to have that thinking from administration about what your suggestions would be in terms of.
Well, again, the great tool for that is if you go to the beginning pages and you see what is requiring living to fund it. So, for example, the airport is $40,000. The food bank is $15,000. Golf is $263,000. So, what there can be cut, or what do you have to raise a levy to?
Right. So we've had this debate over and looking at the scenarios as, my head spins when I think about it. So if you go up $25 a membership at golf, you lose 3 guys.
But it doesn't.
It defeats the purpose. So that's your balancing point. How do you balance, like hockey, right? You say there's hockey players, but you're going to go, ice time's going to go up $25 an hour. We went through that scenario. Remember back when you were the community service manager, we went dead time in the morning, $60 and high time at 120. Everybody freaked out. Oh, my kid's not playing hockey, can't afford it. That's 20 years ago. Same scenario today. It's the same scenario.
I'm talking about something a little more drastic than that, which is, what if we don't do golf? What if we close Lakeview?
Sure.
What if we no longer cut green spaces?
Right.
Like real.
So, what I would suggest is we'll come back and have, draft budget meeting number 2 in about a month's time, right? But the challenge with, operating a municipality is it's not linear,
No.
right? It's circular, right? So, it's easy to say we're not going to offer golf, right? But then people say, well, why don't I live in Marathon?
Yeah,
Right.
that makes more sense.
So why are we building new ALC with a swimming pool? Because we're trying to attract professionals and families to come live in our community, to have a beautiful place to live, to work, and play. So those are services you really don't want to touch. You want to touch the things that are not going to affect people directly.
But if we build an ALC,
Right.
it might mean that another building has to go.
Sure, absolutely. And we've talked about that preliminary, so we know that. Now, there's always a second option, and nobody ever lets us dip into that, but we do have reserve accounts. You can sometimes offset, Mr. Treasurer, you can offset your budgets by an unusual year by some reserves that you've had from surpluses in the past. Now,
We've had 2 years of
we've had,
deficit.
right, we've had some
We're
struggles.
testing 2024 to be a deficit again.
So, no, hear me out, please. Right? So we've had some struggles in the last couple of years because of things happening in inflationary values, by all means. Everybody's experienced that, 6, 7, 8% inflationary values. What I'm saying is that that's an option for council to consider in times of hardship, not to be living off of the lifeline of reserves, but to dip in, to reduce from 8, maybe 6, 100 grand, 150 grand one time dip in.
So the problem again with trying to protect reserves to do future stuff, why is 2025 a hardship?
No. I'm just saying, if it comes to that, you can't find any other dollars unless you want to shut down this facility. We're going to save 300 grand, then you do that. That's the only other way. I'm only throwing out tools in the toolbox to consider.
Well, you don't have that much reserves again. And you don't.
Nope.
We've had 3 years where council has said go into reserves. You can't do that forever.
No, for sure. But we've had years where the administration recognized that we put things for sale, didn't sell, so we had to account for those in operating budget. So we're doing a little differently. There's a bunch of scenarios out there. I'm not saying go into the reserves. I'm saying the potential for the toolbox to be looked at is you have tools within it. Or you just go back to ratepayer and say, you know what? Sorry, we've done everything we possibly can. We're going to shut down the facility or not. You're going to pay 7% increase in taxation.
But the true challenge, and it's not unique to Marathon, right, is northern communities of our size have seen no growth.
No.
Right? We don't have any, very little new taxation assessment, very little population growth, right? But, our inflationary costs, keep pace with everybody else in the province, like the GTA, right? That's the challenge, right? Because the gap has gotten bigger, right? Without the revenues keeping pace, right? So that becomes the challenge is, it's not about managing revenues, it's about cutting costs. And that's not a sustainable model.
And we're seeing a reflection even in Barrick's transfer of those revenues from taxation, because our numbers are coming down in the actual formula. So the formula is based on where people live. Well, they're living less in Marathon, so that reflects on us. So save $1 million we were getting in the past, we might only be getting 700 grand now. That's 300 grand we're losing annually. So you're right, we need to generate revenue by having more taxation or more revenues by user fees. And there's a balance. And I'm just using that as a scenario. I know you hate me talking like that, because every time I talk like that, you but that is a tool in the toolbox. It's not that you want to go to that part of the toolbox, but if you have to, you might have to. That's what
I commend administration for the other side of that is, yes, there's been no population growth, but I do see the municipality trying to increase revenues through the port or through growing economic development. That's an easy place to cut, but I think it's probably a place we need to support, because that's the other option. If we can grow revenues, then it's off the ratepayer, and I would feel really good about giving everybody the money.
Well, we put it back on your plate.
Yeah, that's our job. Like I said, realistically, a month's time, we'll bring a report back to council.
And again, I think, we looked at our support groups out there in the community that do a great job volunteering, and, we've given them some money, but not a lot. We've met some of their ask, and we could cut all that out and save ourselves 300 grand, then we have no support groups, no volunteers out there, and no quality of life. So, no, we got to continue to fund those just within a reasonable amount of money. As I said to Councillor Balance a minute ago, I think that's why we get paid the big bucks, right, to make those tough decisions, but we can always just push back on administration. Hey, bring us new numbers. Because that's what we need, right? We need a team effort to make sure that we're trying to bring in a reasonable amount of increase. So be it. Thank you very much for the afternoon, and we'll meet again. And thank you so much for the student councils coming around to this great information session. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night, everybody at home or afternoon. Thanks, Lana. Good shut her down.